What's up, guys? This is David with To Build. Today we're going to be working on some shelves. So my garage is a mess, as you can tell. There is just stuff everywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to create a little bit more room in here. And over here we have kitchen cabinets, which I tore out of my house and decided, hey, what a great idea. Put them in my garage and create storage. Well, that didn't work out so good. Cabinets are great, but they just don't do a whole lot of good in a garage because you can't see what's in them, and then you just start shoving stuff in here, and before you know it, everything that you've been looking for is in here, and you never looked in there to find it. So anyway, I already got the bottom cleaned out, and what I'm going to do is get all this stuff out of here and cleaned up, and then show you how to build some shelving for your garage. And basically the wood is not that expensive. I'll go over how much it costs and everything to build the shelves that I built, and tell you exactly what it cost in just a minute. Alright, let's get started. Okay, so what I'm going to do first is I'm going to build the shelves themselves. And it's basically just going to be a box. It's going to be a 2 by 8 foot box. 2 foot by 8 foot. And how we do that is, I have 8 foot 2 by 4s. I'm going to measure out the 2 by 4s 8 foot. And then I'm going to put a 2 by 4 between them. And I'm going to be cutting the 2 by 4 not at 2 foot, because that'll make my shelves wider than 2 foot. So it'll be actually, you get to take off 3 inches, because your 2 by 4s aren't actually 2 inches, or 1.5 inches. So you have to multiply that by 2, which is 3 inches. So then you're going to take off 3 inches from the 2 foot. So 24 inches and 2 foot. So it's going to be 21 inches 2 by 4s nailed between the ends of the 2 by 4s. And then I'll put another 2 in between just for support. So there'll be 4 of those at 21 inches, one at each end, and then 2 spaced evenly in the middle. So let's get started. Okay, so when you get ready to lay out your little box, which is what we're going to call it, what you got to do is you got to figure out what is my spacing on my 2 by 4 so you can get it right. I mean, it's a shelf, so it's not rocket science. I mean, as long as you can eyeball it if you want to, but the way to do it, the right way to do it is to measure it out, make sure you get it right. But I already know that it's 32 inches, and then 32 and then 64. So to get my measurements right, so that I have a 2 by 4 equally spaced, they're 32. And the way you want to do this is you gotta take your tape measure, measure it out on one board. You're gonna go ahead and mark 32, and then you're going to mark another 64, and that's going to be your center of your board. So if you want to get technical, 2 by 4s, 1.5 inches, so you can go basically 3/4 of an inch and make you a mark there, and then put an X right next to it. So that's the edge of your 2 by 4. And I'm going to do the same on this one. So I make my mark, and then I'll put an X. That's where your 2 by 4 is going to go. Now that we got that 2 by 4 marked, you get your 2, make sure they're even. Had to change the battery. So anyway, back as I was saying, you want to line these up, get them the end flush, and then you're going to take your square, and mark it on that line that we made, and then put your necks on the other side of the other one, and then do the same thing down here. Alright, now we can build our first shelf. Alright, so also a little trick. Sometimes you get this wood and it's twisted or whatever, and some people will tell you to take your square, put it on your 2x4, and make a mark down the side as well so that you can keep your 2x4 straight. But I eyeball mine most of the time, and using this concrete is pretty level, so you can pretty much get it pretty much straight with that. So anyway, now at Lowe's, those good old guys down there, they got a big machine that they can rip a 2x4. So if you don't have a big truck you can carry stuff around in, you can have them rip it down, which is what I did because it's just easier than me having to do it. Anyway, they ripped me down some plywood, so we already have plywood sheet for our fine shelf. First shelf is done pretty much. Alright guys, so what I did is to get this mounted up here by myself, what I got to do is I went ahead and marked where I want this shelf to be, and so I put screws in here. As you can see, I marked it, and then I put a screw right on the line, with the very top of the line is sitting on the very top of the screw. So you can see where that's where we want it to be. So I can pull that, I can bring that over here and set it up there, and it will pretty much stay there by itself for a minute anyway, so I can screw it in and get it buttoned in. And then I wanted it to be high enough, this shelf I wanted to be high enough so that I could open my freezer without having to worry about hitting my shelf. And there's plenty of room there for that, so I don't have to worry about, you know, anything being in the way of my freezer. So I got this 2x4 sitting right here because on the end right here we're going to have a 2x4 holding it up. On that side we're going to have a stud over there. We're going to screw it into those studs. So we don't have to worry about one on that end, but we need to worry about one on this end temporarily anyway. And there'll be one here on this end, and then there'll be one somewhere in the middle here. So let's go ahead and get that put up there real quick. I just wanted y'all to see how I do it by myself. All right. Now the shelf is temporarily in place until I can get the screws, get it screwed up to the studs, and it'll hold everything in place. It's at eye level where I can see, still see what's on that shelf, which is what I wanted. I mean, and I'm gonna have a shelf right here that I'll be able to see what's on it. you can tell, the next shelf is going to be a little shorter, so I'm going to measure it. It was already it's 59 inches. That'll give me an inch of play between it and the freezer. And so I'm going to cut these 2x4s at 59. Same as I did with the other ones, except they were 8 foot, so these will be 59 inches. And what I like to do is, because I'm going to be cutting 2 at a time, I'll just stack them on top of each other and get them even on the edge. Stick it in there where I want to cut it. Alright. Make sure it's flush, make sure it's even still. Put our measuring tape up here and grab our pen, or pencil, which is always fun to find. So when you get tired of looking for your pencil that you can't find, you resort to a screw or a nail. So back to 59 inches. We're going to make our mark on here. Another little tip is when you're lining up your saw blade, if you've never done this before, cut a piece of wood, you're going to line it up so that that saw blade is to the scrap side, because the saw blade is about 1/4 of an inch, you know, 1/4 of an inch thick. So you want to make sure that you're right to the right side, because the left side is the one we want to keep. So when you line that up, you want to make sure that your 1/4 of an inch that you're cutting off, or 1/8 of an inch that your saw blade is on the right side of that mark, so that you're not cutting it 1/8 of an inch short. So just a little tip if you didn't know that already. And you need power. Power is very important. And now we need 3 boards cut at 21, because they're 2-foot shelves. And like I said before, you want them to be, these 2x4s are going all the way to the end, so that's going to be 59, and then the 2x4s are going to be in between those, so you got to take off 3 inches, because the 2x4s are 1.5 inches thick. So to make it 2 foot, it has to be 21, and that'll give you a 2-foot shelf. We know it's 59 inches, so we got to find the center of 59 inches. What's the center of 59 inches? Well, that's simple math. Half of 59 is going to be, so it's going to be 29.5. So 29.5 is our center mark. And then take 3/4 off of that, and that'll be the edge of the 2x4 we want to put in there. So then we're going to take our square, we're going to mark it all the way on this other one so they're even. And we have an equal mark on both sides, so we know where we want to nail that 2x4 in there. And like I was saying before about, lay it down flat, put a mark on the side like this, so you know where that edge is going to go. that board's gonna go. So now you have a mark over that. If you don't already have one of these, you do much of this, this is really, it's expensive, and but good Lord, it's a time saver. I mean, there's just no way to do it. No other way to do it. And if you're wondering what it is, it's a pass load, and it uses air, but you don't have a hose hooked to it, which I have air hose guns too, and they tend to get jammed up, or the air pressure ain't right, or if you got water in your tank and in your air lines, they get messed up pretty easily. So, but this deal right here, it's got a gas cartridge in the back right here, and you can pull it out right there and see it. So it uses a gas. That's where the air comes from. So you don't have an air hose hooked up to it all the time. Or air hose where you gotta wrap it around everything. It's bad enough we got power cords everywhere. And then you got a battery right here. And you keep that charged. That's the off. And if you push it all the way in, that's on. So, but this is the deal right here. It's expensive to buy. I think when I bought this one, I paid about $3.50 for this. The gun itself, and then you got to buy the gas cartridges, and of course the nails. And the nails are like $50 a box. But now they're actually putting a gas cartridge in with the nails because they know that you're going to go through the nails. You're going to go through the gas. So, but I put a gas cartridge in this, and the little projects I do, you know, it stays pretty good while, and I still have nails left over from other little jobs I've done and whatever. So, but it definitely makes it a lot easier. And if I weren't planning on pulling this stuff down and putting up insulation behind this stuff, you know, I would definitely use that to nail it up and everything, and it would be a lot easier than screws or trying to hand nail something. But you do need to be careful, because I have put a nail through my finger before. When you're holding your boards, you want to hold them back far enough that if that nail comes out the side of that wood, you're not going through your thumb, because that's what I did. I went, boop, and it went right through my thumb, popped out the side of the 2x4. And you know, with these things, you don't know how you think you got it straight, but sometimes the nail will come out or hit a knot or do something crazy. If it hits a knot inside that wood, it'll come out the side. So just because you think you got it straight doesn't mean it's straight. So you want to keep your hand far enough back that you don't shoot it through the wood and into your finger. And you can still miss that piece of wood and shoot the nail across the room or whatever. So it's you know, or through your hand. But you want to just be careful when you're using one of these, because it's a gun and it hurts. As you can see, this plywood's not top grade plywood. I mean, I'm not gonna go spend $30 on a sheet of plywood. So you can buy really nice plywood if you want it to be nicer, and put you a nicer finish piece of wood around it if you want. Once you get this part done, that's totally up to you. This is my garage, and I work in it. It's going to get dirty. It's going to get dusty. It's going to get paint on it. It's going to get grease on it. So the look of it doesn't really matter as much to me. But I know some people like, you know, their garages to be the way they like them. So That's totally up to you if you want to spend the more money to do it. But once I'm done, I'll break down how much everything costs. It wasn't really that bad in comparison to buying a shelf made at Lowe's out of wood, out of metal or whatever. I just can't afford to go spend that kind of money on a shelving system. But if you can, more power to you. All right, plywood does tend to, you know, throw off a lot of splinters and chips and stuff like that. So make sure you put some safety glasses on when you're cutting plywood or whatever. Check the depth of your blade because you don't want to go all the way through. I mean, with it just cutting halfway through the blade because then it'll bind up a lot easier. It just cuts a lot smoother if it's not. Alright guys, so I got the shelves put together already, as you can see. I went ahead and did that off camera, and we just got to put it up, and so I got it all ready to go and went ahead and put the screws in like I showed you before, and the screws for all of them except for the one up there. Once I get these up and installed, then we'll work on that one. So here we go. try to figure out, make sure I had everything right. And I did have to do a little bit of different, but like I've said before, this is just wood. So, I mean, if it's something doesn't fit the way you want it to, you can always change it a little bit. So I had to cut this leg off right here and put another piece in over here on this side. And that way I could get my generators in here the way I wanted them. And then this piece right here was on the outside, so I just took it and moved it to the front. And that gave me the room to move the freezer over so that I could get the generators in there and make everything work like I wanted it to. So anyway, the breakdown of how much everything costs. So the 2x4s were about $88, $90 or whatever. It was 24. I had to buy 24 of those. I got 2 left. So, so I had about $90 in 2x4s, and then I had 3 sheets of plywood, which I had Lowe's rip for me right down the middle, so they would be 2 foot by 8 foot. And so they were, you know, I can't even remember. I think they were $16 a piece or something like that. So you're talking about $45 for those, somewhere around there. It was like it all came up total to about $145 after taxes. So for $145, you can build shelves in your garage to allow you the space to do whatever you want to do. And it doesn't look like a pretty shelving system. I mean, you can go to Lowe's and buy, you know, those shelving systems that cost a lot of money. I weren't willing to do that when I can build it myself and make it the way I wanted to, for cheaper. And so anyway, it's done, and I'm about to start loading stuff in there. As you can see, the kitchen cabinets, there's no way I could store any of the big stuff in kitchen cabinets, so that's why they had to go. There's just no storage in kitchen cabinets. It's a great idea, but it just weren't, it doesn't, logically doesn't make sense to do kitchen cabinets in a garage. So, please like and subscribe to the video. If you learned anything, that's great. And look for some new videos on the boat coming soon. And I might be building starting a video on a lean-to on the other side of the building over there. So stay tuned for that. All right, thanks guys.